so that mankind will have no argument against Allah after the messengers. And ever is Allah exalted in might and wise.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
MashaAllah. You know, today I thought it was a good idea to talk about the prophets in a more general term. We've spoken about them all the way from the beginning of our series. But one of the things I want to make clear about prophets is they're not gods. Prophets are human beings just like you and I. This means they have feelings, they have needs, and they make mistakes. Not big mistakes like you and I make, but they make mistakes. So in some of the stories I want to tell you now, you're going to see some mistakes, but you're going to see what they do about it, and that's what's important. When we start with the Prophet Adam, alayhi salam, we know he made a mistake. He was not supposed to eat the fruit, but he did it. Just a mistake. What we learn from it, though, is the most important lesson, what to do after we make a mistake. If you were playing out with your friends, having some fun, throwing the ball, having a good time, you know, but somebody throws the ball too hard and it goes through your hands and breaks somebody's window, what do? Do you run away?
No.
Well, most people would. Say, I didn't do it. He threw the ball. I didn't throw it. He threw it, or she threw it, or even if I throw it, I say, no, it's not my ball. It's somebody else's ball. He said, but you threw it. Yeah, but it's not mine, you know, trying to get out of it, you know. But what we learned from Adam, alayhi salam, peace be upon him, he didn't blame anybody. He just said, I am sorry. I shouldn't have done it. I forgot. And so now I want you to forgive me. And if you don't forgive me, I'm going to be in the worst condition. That's what he said. So each time a prophet makes a mistake and does something wrong, he always goes back to Allah, glorifies Allah, and then he apologizes and asks Allah to forgive him. You follow that? You remember the story when we were talking about the prophet who went in the whale? What was his name?
Yunus alayhi salam.
Yeah, Yunus or Jonah was in the whale. What did he do? He was in there for so long, you know, and then he said what? By the way, I didn't tell you something about that story. I think you might find it interesting. It says in one of the books that the whale who swallowed him knew he was a prophet. He knew that Yunus alayhi salam was a prophet, and he felt shy to swallow him, but it was an order from Allah. The whale knew he had to do it, but he felt really shy. I've got a prophet inside of me. After being in there for a long time, what he said was, La ilaha illa ante subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. More or less in English, there's no God really to worship except you, Allah. The majesty and the glory is for you, and the wrongdoing, I did it to myself. And this is what it should always be, that when we make a mistake, we say, okay, I made a mistake. And this is very hard to do. It's very hard to do, to say I'm wrong. All of us like to be right. You like to be right? I love to be right. Somebody said, you're right. I go, ooh, I feel good, you know. But somebody said, you're wrong. You say, what? No, I'm not. Right away. Huh? I think that's maybe the lesson that we can learn from some of the stories I want to give you now and see what you think. We were talking a little earlier about the prophet Dawood. You remember that? Dawood, David. When he became the new king, he was actually like almost elected by his people. You know, it's not like we have elections today, but the people all were very happy with him. You remember the first king they got before him was named what? Talut. Right. But they didn't want him, remember? Their prophet Shamil said, this is going to be your king, but they're like, yeah, but he's from the tribe of Benjamin, and, you know, come on. These guys, I'm sorry, losers. But in the case of Dawood, though, They had seen him on the battlefield. Look what he did. He was very brave. He was also one of those people who, when he spoke, people listened. In fact, his speech was different than the average human being. Each of these prophets that we've talked about, Allah has given them special qualities. Adam was the biggest of all the human beings. He was huge. Yusuf, alayhi salam, had the most beautiful face. And still to this day, we know that how beautiful his face is. People still talk about how gorgeous, handsome man that he was. And a promise from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that when you go to Jannah, the men, all of us, we will have a good-looking face like Yusuf. Get excited, girls. When you get there, we'll be waiting. Good-looking faces, right? Huh? Well, Dawood had something too, but his was his voice. His voice was so sweet. It was so wonderful. And then when he would start to recite, people would just be like that. It would just get them. You know, birds would stop and listen to him. A bird's flying along, you know, just minding his own business. He hears Dawood, alayhi salam, and he goes, ah, and he forgets to flap his wings. And woo, because it's so beautiful, this voice that he has. And Allah gave him something called Zabur. Can you say Zabur?
Zabur.
In English, they call it Psalms or songs, the songs of David, because when he recited, it sounded like that. Now, some people will tell you about music. They say music is forbidden. But actually, this kind of music is good from the voice. Have you heard somebody recite the Quran and it sounded really nice to you and you said, wow. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
If you hear something like that and you said, yeah, that's nice, you're just getting a little taste, but never the full thing, because David or Dawood had the best of the best voices of anybody. And man, I wish we could have heard it, but I've heard a lot about it. And our prophet, peace be upon him, told us about this too. One of the things that people liked about him was his good character and his ability to judge. You could bring him some problem and he could say, oh, like this and like this and like that. And they would go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea, yeah. So they made him a king. Allah made him a prophet. But then also they made him a judge because he had so much wisdom. And let me explain something to you about wisdom. Some people think having knowledge is the same as having wisdom, but it's not. Because many people have knowledge, but they don't know how to use it right. But wisdom is being able to take the knowledge you have and make it work. Would you like me to tell you an example of that?
Yeah.
Well, when Dawood, David, peace be upon him, was the king and ruler, some people would take problems to him to solve. And one time, somebody came to him with a problem. And they were saying that, well, I had a field of grapes. And, you know, they have an arbor called a grape arbor. That's where they have these trellises and the grapevines are there. And it's very costly and time-consuming to grow grapes. It takes years for those plants to get big enough to give grapes. And then it takes a long time to take care of them. You have to, grapes is a good business, but it's a lot of work, And then a neighbor had sheep, okay? But he didn't take care of his sheep. He didn't feed them, wasn't taking care of them, didn't pay attention to them, just let them run around. And when he felt like it, he would go get a sheep and sell it or do something with it. Eventually, one day, the sheep were hungry. They were going here and there and everywhere. Guess where they went? Right into the grapes. And they ate every single grape. There was nothing left. Oh. So the man came to the Prophet Dawood and he said, I got a problem. What's your problem? He said, this guy's sheep ate all my grapes. Dawood alayhi salam thought about it. He said, all right. He has to give you all of his sheep. And you have to give him your field. And then he can do what he wants to with it. Because it's going to take him a long time to get it to do anything. You get the sheep, he gets the field. Is that pretty good? It's kind of fair, yeah? But now I'm going to tell you about another prophet who had even more wisdom than that, and that's why I want you to see this. Dawood had a boy. Do you know his name?
Sulaiman alayhi salam.
Wait a minute, you guys are too fast. I think you know these stories better than I do. He was 11 years old. Who here is 11 years old? Is anybody 11 years old? Are you 11? Just your age. Might have been your size, I don't know. Yeah. And he said, can I say something? And his father loved him very much and knew he had a lot of wisdom. He said, go ahead. He said, well, what would happen if the farmer of the grapes takes the sheep and takes care of them, and he can get the wool from them, get the milk from them, and use the sheep as long as the other man is taking care of the grapes until the grapes come back and they come in like they're supposed to, then give him his sheep back. He's got his sheep back. So this man doesn't lose anything, and the other one won't lose anything either. How do you like that? Well, that was one of the decisions. Would you like to hear another one?
Yes.
Every action depends upon its intention.
Intention sincere.
What is your intention? Why do you do what you do?
Concentration focused. Dedication dynamic.
Every single aspect of your mind, of your soul, of your heart, is it for Allah, sincerely for Him, or is it for something else?
Get going on how to improve your prayers.
The purpose of these talks is to counter exactly that type of behavior.
Join Abdul Rahim Green.
In other words, with the outward action, there is also an inner dimension.
In Inner Dimensions of Worship. Next on Peace TV.
One time, the Prophet Dawood, this is according to Islam. Now, in the Bible, it just has only his son Suleiman, but this actually is a two-step deal, the way we know it. The Prophet Dawood was sitting in judgment. And by the way, he used to do this. He divided his day into 4 parts. One part of his day he used for himself. That was to eat and rest and things like that. But another part of his day was for worship to Allah. Another part of the day was to sit and listen to the people's problems. And another part of the day to give lectures and speeches. Maybe kind of like I'm talking with you. So, anyway, when he was sitting in judgment seat, some people came, and 2 women came up, and they had a baby. And they were both crying and making a lot of noise and, be like, oh, what's going on? One woman, she said, this lady's baby died in the night, and she took my baby. And the other lady said, no, this is my baby. Her baby got eaten by the wolf. I said, now, wait a minute. So he listened to everything they had to say. This woman said this, the other woman said that. Listened to the story, back and forth. He said, okay, the lady with the baby, she seems sincere. I guess she'll go ahead and take it. But again, now we'll see what happens. Suleiman, they brought him, 11 years old, imagine this. Asked him, well, what would you have said? He said, well, hold on. He said, is this your baby? The lady said, yes. That's the lady, other lady. Is it your baby? Yes. He said, put the baby right here and bring that big sword. And then we'll cut the baby in half, and you can have half, and you can have half. The one lady said, yes. The other lady said, no, 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 no. It's her baby. Let her have it. He said, now we have found the real mother. This is the mother. Why? Because the real mother would never let anybody hurt her baby. Yes. She would rather give it up than anything happen. But the other lady she was kind of off in her head because her baby really had died. And she was really, not thinking clear anymore. So she took the other lady's baby, not just because she wanted a baby, but because something's wrong in her head now, because she's really mixed up. So when they said, cut the baby, she was saying, yeah, okay. Not thinking about the condition of the baby. She wasn't concerned about the welfare of the baby, and she never was. She was just concerned that her baby died, that's all. So you see how this is called wisdom. And in fact, many people talk about the wisdom of Solomon because of that incident. And that was a pretty good idea, wasn't it? So in your life, whenever you're dealing with something, try to remember there's always two sides to the story. There's always two sides. And to prove it, this also happened to Prophet David. One night, he wanted to go in and do his worship. And he had a place where he went, and nobody could get in there. He had guards at the door. He was in there worshiping Allah. All of a sudden, like just out of a cloud or something, two guys just appeared right in front of him. How'd you guys get here? They said, don't worry. They're going to hurt you. We just want to ask you a question. Solve something for us. Where's my guards? These guys getting in here. What's going on, Well, all right, what's your problem? They said, well, we want you to solve something for us. Okay. This man has 99 sheep. I have only one, the one that he gave me. But he took it back. He took the sheep back. What do you say? He said, well, he's an oppressor. He's bad. He has all of this, and he took what you have too. Oh, he has to give it back to you, and he should fear Allah. And they disappeared right in front of his face, just like that. And then he said, wait a minute. Allah sent two angels. That's what that was. And this was a test for me. And what was the test? He said, I forgot to ask the other side of the story. I only listened to one side of the story. And you can't do that. You can't make a good judgment between people if you only listen to one side. And that was the lesson that Allah gave him. How do you know that that's a true story? Or how do you know what's a condition if you didn't hear the other side of it? You see? So that's what he was learning from this. But anyway, Daud, was very much loved by all the people. So much so that wherever he went, they wanted to listen to him recite. The animals and birds listened to him recite. And actually, his son was picking up some ideas from him and watching him as well. But then all of a sudden, one day, Prophet David died. The people weren't really expecting him to die. It was just, he died. Everybody missed him immediately. And so big, huge numbers of people came. Somebody said even 4,000 of the holy people, the people that are like priests and that were coming. And thousands more of other people. There were people everywhere. And it was hot. How hot? It was so hot. But Suleiman was observing this, and he was worried because this much heat, and his father's laying there dead, and all these people. Suleiman started talking to the birds and asked the birds to come. And the birds started coming. And they came, and they came, and they came, and they totally covered over all the people and kept it shady and cool until the funeral and everything was over with. And when the people left, the birds went away. Have you heard a story about birds before in the Quran? Tayrin Ababil. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
You have? What's this story? Do you know? What? What's the name of the surah? Suratul Fil. What does fil mean?
Elephant.
Elephant. Is it right? It's called the elephant?
Yes.
I thought you said it had to do with birds. You got flying elephants? Well, actually, this is a story too about birds. I think it's good for me to mention it right here. Now, this happened at the time of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The very year that he was born is called the year of the elephant. And when we talk about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I'll give you the whole story, but just now I'll tell you the short version, okay? What happened, some people had come up with an army, and they wanted to take over Mecca. Now, at that time, Prophet Muhammad's grandfather was in charge of everything there. And when these people came, this big army came, and they had an elephant. Now, people in the desert didn't see elephants before. They were shocked. This huge animal with this long nose thing hanging down, you know? Boom, 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 boom. And I said, wow, what is that? And the elephant would get closer and closer. They were scared. But, and this is the short version of the story, so wait till you hear the whole story. We'll just give you this little taste. Allah sent birds against them because the people ran away. Allah sent birds against this army. And the birds picked up these little what? Pebbles, stones, and started pelting them until they killed them with the stones. The birds did it. And then they went back. The people that were left, they ran away. I guess the elephant ran away too, huh? But see how Allah can use other things. Sometimes we think we're doing something. It's me, I did this, I did that. But it's really Allah does it. And He can use whatever He wants. Like in the story of David and Solomon, when David died and the birds came and covered up everything. It's really by the will of Allah. Anyway, after the death of David, that's what happened. Suleiman became the next king for them. King Solomon. That's what they call him, King Solomon. Now Allah blessed him with a lot of things. A lot of things. He had so much. Even today, people talk about the wealth of King Solomon, and they make movies about it, they tell stories about it, books about King Solomon's mines, and how he had so much treasures and so on. But what happened to him, he made a mistake. Oh yeah, we all make mistakes, don't we? He got distracted. Now he also used to worship Allah, just like his father. No idols, no statues, just worshiping Allah. But then he got distracted. And Shaitan comes to you through the things you love most. What do you think he liked most? His horses. He had a huge stable, so many horses. Now in the Bible, I think it says something like 5,000. I don't know how many horses he really had, but he had a lot. One day they had a parade, and here came the horses coming by. And he was looking at the horses. Man, I love my horses. Look at them. Ooh. He would go up to those horses and just look, And any part of that horse, he'd like to touch it. The long hair, the mane, it's called mane. The hair is called mane. And the back of the horse, and the horses were beautiful looking. They're gorgeous. But the horses he had distracted him so much, one day he forgot all about Asr. You know what's Asr?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the afternoon prayer. Now, prophets have to pray. They have to pray, even before Muhammad. After Muhammad, then everybody has to pray. That's why we still pray today like we do. But before that, it's the prophets have the biggest and largest responsibility on them to pray on time. He forgot the prayer. He just forgot. And it got dark. Maghrib came, and he was still like, oh, my horses. And when he realized it, he said, I have done something really bad. Something that I should like better than these horses is my worship for Allah. He felt bad about it. And for a while, Allah took everything away from him. For a while. And somebody else was on the throne. A shaitan was on the throne for a while as their king. Well, till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
analyze your mistakes.
Have you ever